Okay, this is a step-by-step for my friends that I sent the sourdough starter. Basically use the food.com recipe that I sent you. And then when you first start out in the bowl, you wanna make sure that you really whip the ingredients, which would be the water, the yeast, the sourdough starter, the flour, the salt, and the sugar together until it's like, probably whip it 1 to 2 minutes. Your arm's gonna get pretty sore from doing that. If you do it by hand, let this mixture sit on the counter for hour and a half, till it doubles in size, basically. So for the next phase, we got hot boiling water. We've got our pans ready. I haven't greased them yet. And then I put the hot boiling water in a pan in the oven, close the oven just before I start the next step. Okay, so it's been about an hour and a half for me. Take a look. It's doubled in size easily. Next thing we want to do is take 1 cup of our flour, teaspoon of baking soda, and we're going to sift that into the mix. And we start to fold that down. So you just fold the flour in. All right, that's good. Okay, so now that it will pour out of the bowl, get all our scraps and remnants out. Pour it out onto the counter. And now we want to flour our hands nicely and start working the dough and bringing it in toward itself. And it's probably going to stick to the counter. As you go, you want to have a cup of flour on the side of the table and just sprinkle the dough or the flour onto the table until it becomes a workable piece of dough. And keep moving flour into the dough. Should only take about a cup. And it's still going to be sticky and stick to your hands. You can just brush your hands together and it comes right off. Keep flouring it. It takes quite a bit of flour, but again, it shouldn't be more than a cup. And once we get a workable dough, we're going to start kneading it. The more I push into it, the more it starts to stick to my hands. It means I just need to incorporate some more flour. This is really the most critical step. And you can see it starting to become workable. I'm going to grab my bench scraper. Bottom shelf. Oh yeah, bench scraper. A little more flour. And I just keep kneading it. And once I get a dough that I can knead, I'm gonna knead it for 5 to 10 minutes. And the proper kneading technique is to push into the dough, turn it over your hands, push in and turn it. So if you can get that proper technique, that's what's gonna make your dough the most consistent, and you're wanting it to like fight you back. You'll start to feel it. It'll get a little more smooth and supple. But kneading is really the most important step with this bread. So you can see I actually have a workable dough that I can start kneading. And you just keep doing this for 5 to 10 minutes. Add a little flour as necessary just so it doesn't stick to your hands. Go ahead and stop. Now we've got this nice, I've been kneading it maybe 7 minutes, almost 8 minutes. We've got a nice supple ball of dough. You can see it stretches and breaks just a little bit. So now what we want to do is we've got our grease pans right here. And then we want to divide this in half. Set it on the side. It's still going to be slightly sticky, but it should, like, if you touch it, it should not stick. It's just, if you leave it on a board, it'll stick a little bit. Again, that kneading technique. Flour the dough, or the board real quick. And now I want to stretch it out. I'm going to flatten it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll it up to shape it. And I want to keep rolling it up until I get that bottom corner on like that. And I will just want to shape it and make it nice. And you want that seam on the bottom. And then we're going to go ahead and put it right onto the pan and try to keep a nice uniform shape. And we'll do that with the same with the other one. And flatten it out. Try to get the dough as square as possible if you can. A little flour if necessary. It's not super important. Flip it this side. Okay, so now I'm just going to roll that up. And while I roll it, I'm stretching that outside. So then that seam is on the bottom. You can tuck in the end if I have to. Just want a nice even loaf right in the middle of my pan. Cover these in tea towels, and now your oven should be nice and humid. Cover it in a towel and throw it in the oven. About an hour out, and the bread is risen far enough that we can go ahead and pull it out. We're gonna leave the water in there. We're gonna turn the oven on to 400. And then we're gonna dock our bread. Basically make big slices in it. I use a razor blade. Go ahead and turn it off. Okay, so now our oven's up to temperature. I'm gonna spritz the top of the bread with some just water. I'm gonna stick the loaves on the middle shelf and throw a couple ice cubes in the bottom of the stove because it creates some more steam, and we're good. Bake for 45 minutes. Loaves come out of the oven. You should be able to flip them over and tap them, and here they're hollow. And if you do want to take the temperature of the bread, the internal temperature should be 200 degrees. Put them on a drying rack or a cooling rack, let them sit for a half hour, and enjoy.